Hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Minneapolis. Maria Bartholdi here in the booth, joined by Jacob Van Lunen. We're starting things off with our main table here, Daniel Weiser versus Blake Madson. All right, we're going to kick things off. Both players. Ooh, we've got a Druid of the Cowl.
Yeah, and earlier today we talked about that being, the cheapest ramp spell in Standard. And, one of the reasons why we haven't seen ramp decks playing it much is because it has a target on its head. They have all this spot removal. They have nothing to do with it against these ramp decks. So, Druid of the Cowl makes all those cards live. But in a lot of ways, them using removal spells in your Druid of the Cowl instead of advancing their board state on the second turn, that makes a difference. So, and when you're not playing against red, 2-mana ramp spells, sweet.
Red-green ramp versus black-green Constrictor. Don't worry, Jonathan Job and Yang Fanchen. We've got them on our back, or Fanchen Yang on our backup table, so we'll be able to peek in on that match as well. And this is so interesting because you did mention Druid of the Cowl being. Do you feel like this is a safe card to play in a ramp matchup right now?
Okay, so if I'm going to play ramp and I want to play 4 drops in my deck, then I like Druid of the Cowl a lot. Druid of the Cowl enabling things like turn 3 Chandra, that's really cool. That's a powerful thing to be able to do. But if I'm playing Druid of the Cowl and I'm ramping it to big fatty boom booms, I'm just going big fatty boom boom mode, then I don't see it as being an ideal card for the deck.
Big fatty boom booms. All right, we've got Winding Constrictor in play for Daniel. Beneath the Sands will enter for Blake Madson. Let's take a look. Red-green ramp. We can only assume he's ramping into fun spells like Ulamog. He's got a couple in his hand right now. There's a look at Beneath the Sands, a card you may or may not actually play in draft. Search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle your library. Also, it's cycling 2. Things are going to start to get out of control on Daniel's side of the battlefield, though. Rishkar, Pima Renegade, hitting play, putting 2 +1/+1 counters on itself as well as on that Winding Constrictor.
Getting in for a lot of damage here. Now, Blake, though, looking in pretty good shape. Like, he's going to take a lot of damage this turn, but next turn he's going to be able to untap and have access to a whole bunch of mana. So
7. Potentially 8. Yep. Smash, says Daniel. Blake just takes it. Those Druids of the Cowls, don't really know the plural there, are too valuable. Tireless Tracker will enter play, coming along with a clue token.
Druids of the Cowl?
Druids of the Cowl, perhaps? Passes the turn back over to Blake. Worldbreaker in hand as well.
It didn't look like he had the land for Worldbreaker.
Ooh, Hour of Devastation is going to send everything packing. Cleans up rather nicely.
I like that quite a bit. Hour of Devastation obviously works better with those 3-mana ramp spells that are not creatures. But, when you're playing out guys, like, they're definitely more likely to play out guys with you and not necessarily play around a card like Hour of Devastation. And Hour of Devastation is so good. It just cleans up the board very nicely. And if you're able to untap after an Hour of Devastation and play something like a Worldbreaker, then it's really hard for your opponent to get back into the game. Look at Nicole Bolas. He is ruthless.
Nicole Bolas.
Nicole Bolas.
His little head egg is glowing.
That's some of my favorite Nicole Bolas art.
It's really beautiful, if that can be the word for it. Formidable.
Liliana, the Last Hope. We talked about this card a lot during the last round. Marshall and Melissa were talking about it, and just one of the most powerful cards printed in recent memory, seeing play in every single constructed format.
It really is. Played against it a lot in Modern, in Vegas. Excellent against the red decks. Grim Flare was the play as well for Daniel. Blake just has to pass back.
Huh, what do you think of Grimflayer right now? What's your take?
I mean, it seems all right at the moment.
Yeah, right now it seems pretty good. He's got that glove.
The
You ever notice
Grimflayer?
that? Yeah, you ever look at the art of Grimflayer?
No, not that closely.
Yeah.
Let's
It's
take
very
a
like
peek.
Jane Austen kind of glove.
Oh yeah, it's like a white lace glove in his hand.
And he's got an axe in the other hand.
Ooh, terrifying.
His eating gloves. He's bringing them with him. Because he doesn't use utensils. But he's still refined.
Oh, somebody says it's a bunny. No.
That's not a bunny.
That would just be brutal.
Blake, though, struggling to have enough mana to do the things he wants to do when he's ramping. And here kind of seeing the problem with Druid of the Cowl when you're playing it with cards like Hour of Devastation and when your opponent has removal spells. Because if those were other ramp spells, he would have already broken the world.
Chef at Monitor just getting run out here for Blake.
And sometimes all you need is a large warm body. And that's what Chef Monitor is here. A
Well,
6'5" lizard.
It's a lizard. It's not exactly that warm. Unless it's been on
It's
a
in the
heat-
desert.
It's a heat rock all day.
It's in the desert. Was it cold in the desert?
Okay, fair point. Fair point. Winding Constrictor, Grimflayer are going to be joined by a foil Walking Ballista.
That Walking Ballista is going to have an extra counter here
Woo!
thanks to
Yeah.
Winding Constrictor, and then it's going to get another 2 counters from Rishkar Pima Renegade, and suddenly that's more than enough damage to finish the game off, and we're on to a second game. Red-Green Ramp has not been very impressive in the matches we've watched, but Blake Madison's at 8-0.
Yeah.
So the deck certainly has a lot of power to it.
Hopefully we'll get to see this deck kind of get in its groove and do its thing. Here we go. As promised, Jonathan Job, Mono White Eldrazi, 8-0 versus Fanchen Yang. Reanimator, 8-0. There you see one of the keys to his deck, Liliana Death's Majesty, sitting at 6 loyalty, able to pull things back from the graveyard, but also in play for Jonathan, Avacyn.
7 p.m. Chaos
Yeah, Avacyn's going to be really good at pressuring that Liliana. Oh,
And a flip.
it's time to purify the world over here.
5 p.m. Chaos
6 is a very relevant amount of power. Got
Oh,
Liliana
yes.
on the other side of the table.
5 p.m. Chaos Frontier Seal. Your realm preparing
Job is, yeah. Yang is just going to have to scoop up his cards there with that Chef at Dune's activation.
Oh, yeah, so
This is at
Avacyn the
7.
Purifier flipped, putting him down to 7 from 10. And then Avacyn has 6 power, so he's obviously able to sacrifice that Chef at Dunes. And these deserts, pretty
These
good in Standard.
deserts. Yeah, it's really interesting to see them have such an impact. We've seen Hash Up Oasis, which was played, at the PT in a couple of decks, and people said, I don't think it's really great. Maybe I should take it out. Here we see it again today. Chef at Dunes being quite handy in any white matchup just to get through those extra little points of damage that you need to push through in decks that traditionally rely on smaller creatures. And of course, if near Deadlands, Ramunap Ruins, deserts are the name of the game right now.
Yeah, they're really, really good.
Where's Ipnu Rivulet? That one's in the God Pharaoh's Gift deck. So that was also
Yeah, so
see play.
a lot of them see play. This is crazy. Cradle of the Accursed doesn't see much play.
No.
So there are some lackluster deserts. I was actually in a food desert for the last day, being stuck in
Why?
airports.
Oh.
The Newark Airport Terminal B food options are limited to the worst sandwich you've ever had in your entire life for $12 and bottles of water that cost $6.
Wow.
So that's a food desert.
Sounds like a nightmare.
That's the type of desert I don't want to play with.
No. Not at all.
No.
I'm sorry, Jake.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
The worst.
The literal worst sandwich you've ever had in your entire life.
It was
For
so
$12.
bad. For $12. It's like dog food and cheese.
That was a sandwich?
Dog food and cheese. I think that's how it was on the menu. Dog food and cheese.
awful.
It's like so brutal when you eat at a place and you're like, I don't know if I should trust this food to not make me sick, and I'm paying this much money for it.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a thought I never had in Japan, by the way. Like, the food was all great everywhere.
Yeah, Japan has a pretty good consumer culture in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Japan facts.
Japan facts.
Please text.
They also have robots.
I mean, yeah.
We have robots too,
Cat
but
cafes.
they have like better robots. And that they probably, their best robots probably get sent over here, to be honest. We probably buy them. But their robots are just everywhere.
They do have vending machines in some of their Magic stores that will just, you can buy a booster pack out of the vending machine. It's really cool.
That is really cool. Do you like pull the thing out?
Yeah.
Like the, yeah. Oh, man.
Sorry, you cannot unsubscribe Japan facts. There's no way. Just like
There.
Servo facts. It's permanent subscription.
Did you have curry at all while you were there? Any of the brown curries?
I did one night.
I love that. That was most of what I ate when I was in Kyoto.
I ate squid.
Alive or dead?
Dead. Dead squid. I had eel for the first time. I
Alive or
witnessed dead. I witnessed the eating of octopus on a stick, when the octopus's heads were stuffed with an egg.
Ooh, that sounds really cool.
It looked bizarre, but apparently it was very good.
They eat a lot of cephalids over there. Cephalopods. You just call them cephalids.
The only reference I have for cephalopods is Men in Black. Do you remember?
I don't remember. I love Men in Black, though.
Oh, such a good movie.
I'm a big fan of cephalopods. You know, if you go to an aquarium, you can often get things like cuttlefish to actually interact with you through the glass. There's not many animals you can get to do
that's
that.
cool.
So it's kind of sweet.
Fish connection. A look down there as our players are kicking things off for Game 2 here in the last round of Day 1, Grand Prix Minneapolis. And a Shrine of the Forgotten Gods in play for Blake, which we've seen a little bit this weekend. Can you talk a little bit about how important this card might be for his deck?
Yeah, so Shrine of the Forsaken Gods is pretty lackluster until it gets to the point where it's ramping you into Ulamog. And it's so important for that because you get up to enough lands, and then suddenly you go from being pretty far away from casting your Ulamog to being already there. And that's this deck's endgame. This deck casts Ulamog and attempts to win the game that way.
All right, so we're going to stay with this match for a little while, but we are going to jump over to Table 2 once they are ready for Game 2, since they are such sweet decks that we haven't seen a lot of today. But for now, we're staying here. Grim Flayer attacking for 2.
And when the Grim Flayer hits, it's a pretty powerful effect. You know, setting up your draw, oftentimes making itself bigger.
Just doing exactly what the green-black deck wants to be doing.
Yeah, it is a scary card to be playing in a field with so many red decks, though. Especially, you know, it ends up trading with a lot of things that cost 1. A lot of the time, you can't even get the block you wanted to get with it. It doesn't race especially well, and you need to turn the corner pretty fast against them, as we've discussed quite a bit this weekend.
Right. Grasp of Darkness will make quick work of that tireless tracker. And Blake passes the turn back. No plays. And here we go. We're going to check in on Table 2. Jonathan Job, Mono White Eldrazi versus Fanchen Yang. Reanimator. Champion of Wits is the play for Fanchen, a card that a lot of Magic players have just fallen in love with.
Oh, it is beautiful. And in a Reanimator type strategy like this, it's especially good. Is you're able to, you know, fill your hand up with potentially reanimation spells while also discarding the gigantic fatty boom booms that you want to be reanimating.
Oh, yes.
And in the late game, it sets your hand up perfectly by coming back as a 4/4 that really just lets you sculpt your hand to perfection.
I want to say that's a Scarab God that's sitting in the graveyard now. Speaking of fatty boom booms.
Yeah, and if you're trying to reanimate things, Scarab God is quite nice.
Meanwhile, Jonathan's got just a little 1/2 out in play. But it can certainly attack right into that champion.
I've been really impressed with Ribbon Inspector, by the way.
Oh, I mean, I love that card.
Against these red decks, it's so good. It blanks Beaumont Couriers while also getting you a clue a lot of the time. Your opponent ends up using triggers on things like Uncop Crasher on your Inspector, which just feels really good when it happens. Inspector has actually been one of the more impressive cards to me this week in my testing.
Matter Reshaper, the play there from Job, Fanchen, Yang. No attacks, sends the turn on back.
And Jonathan's deck, it seems like it's hedging really hard against these red decks, but at the same time, just the combination of cards that he's playing, it matches himself up pretty well against anybody. Thought-Knot Seer can pick apart these combo-type strategies pretty well. And, if Fanchen Yang is leaning on one particular reanimation spell, for example, Jonathan Job can just pick that out of his hand while also adding 4 power to the board, and that makes things really hard for Fanchen.
All right, a block there on the Thraben Inspector from the champion of Wits. Matter Reshaper will get through. So we've seen Yang's deck on camera once before, and he does have Ishkana.
Yeah, Ishkana is one of his best ways of just brick-walling these aggressive decks. I think my favorite thing that we got to see earlier when we watched him was Razaketh, the Foul-Blooded.
Oh, it was so great.
It was awesome. It's an 8/8 trample that just gives you unlimited demonic tutors. Yes, Flample.
Grasp of Darkness taking care of that Eldrazi Displacer, one of the hallmark cards there of Job's deck.
A lot of the time when you see Displacer, you expect it to do really, really exciting things. But in Job's deck, the best thing it really does is blink Thought-Knot Seer, which is pretty nice.
Flaying Tendrils there, the play from Yang. All creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. Exiled.
And that's pretty good against Matter Reshaper because, again, it doesn't get the trigger. But you're spending 3 mana to deal with 3 mana. As far as answers go, it's kind of a parity game. Anybody else smell Avacyn?
Oh, nope.
No?
No Avacyn.
Oh, my goodness. Call me a liar. Pass the turn with 5 mana open.
Come on. You can't always have it.
And maybe he just has a whole lot of nothing.
I see a Sky Sovereign Console Flagship in hand for Job.
That card was incredible for him last round.
Oh, yeah?
It looked like he was in just a completely unwinnable position. Liliana was about to ultimate him, and then Sky Sovereign came down and just started to mow away his opponent's board while also dealing with the Liliana. It was the perfect card for the occasion, and he went boat driving.
Scavenger Grounds is going to exile Yang's graveyard, which is really relevant.
Yeah. Scavenger Grounds, really good in this matchup. One of those cards that, little more than a waste in other matchups. Here, quite strong.
Evolving Wilds for Yang, who I think has a bunch of lands in hand, but I could be wrong. There's a look at Scavenger Ground, and here's, this card was kind of brought in, I think, early on at least, to deal with the God Pharaoh's gift deck.
Yeah.
But just stellar in this matchup. Another one in play, too, for Job that Yang's got to be thinking about.
And just the presence of the Scavenger Grounds in Job's deck, it makes things really difficult for Yang because game plan A for Yang is get a giant creature in my graveyard, use something to put it into play for a lot less mana. And plan A does not work against Job's deck, all because of a land he's playing, something he uses to cast his spells.
And there comes the flagship. Although at this point, Yang could just cast a lot of his really expensive spells.
Yeah. And that's one of the nice things about these reanimation decks. Once you get into a situation where you're late enough in the game, you just start casting your fatties.
So you may have noticed that the lights went a little dark there in the convention center. We had some lights just turn off.
Lots of people have air conditioners on in the city, perhaps.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Minnesota's not used to heat. Magic Sleepover Edition.
Maybe it's a ghost.
Oh, yeah, the famous ghost of the Minneapolis Convention Center. Yeah, it is notable that there are 3 spawning beds in play for Jonathan Job as well.
They won't go out. The lights will be back up in just a minute, and then he's turning those back up.
And this is, a pretty passive game plan here from Job. I'd be surprised if he doesn't have some type of proactive cards in his hand, and he's just passing the turn. He doesn't want to play into Fanchen Yang's strategy, and it seems like, that's working out pretty well for him here, because we just saw Yang cast that Gear Hulk without a target.
Yeah, and those 3 Eldrazi Scions really easily able to crew the Sky Sovereign console flagship there.
Okay, so he gets to deal 3 damage. Not quite enough to deal with the Gear Hulk, but still 6 power, rumbling in through the air.
It's a great skyboat.
Lots of boats in Magic lore have flying.
Yeah.
Never noticed that? There aren't many planes, but there are lots of boats that fly.
I'm waiting for starships.
Ooh.
I have a dream of a set in the blind eternities. I could get into it, but, then we'd be here all night. Stasis Snare here for Job is going to take care of Kalitas.
Traitor.
It would really be Traitor of Get if he used a threaten effect on it.
Yeah.
Let there be light. The lights are back
my
on.
goodness,
It's a thunderous
so bright.
applause here in the convention center.
Thank you for your patience, Magic players. Enjoy the light.
All right, so a little bit of strategic planning here.
Some more Grasp of Darknesses for Yang, as well as another Gear Hulk.
And these grasps are not what Yang wants to be drawing. They're not quite strong enough to deal with Sky Sovereign. You don't want to be using one on an Eldrazi spawn. If you did use one on an Eldrazi spawn, then Job wouldn't have enough of them to activate the Sky Sovereign, but the problem with doing so is there's just another spawning bed there. You may need to do it just to buy a turn, though. Ooh.
Is this Ever After here?
I believe it was a Warping Whale.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
That's kind of an exciting card. Lots of options there.
There's a look at Warping Whale. Haven't seen this card.
Oh,
for
it
quite a
was
while.
an Ever After that Fanchen.
We were looking
cast.
at opposite sides of the
Yeah,
battlefield there. Yeah, Warping Wheel to counter that Ever After. Pretty good.
Yeah, lots of big sorceries in Yang's deck. That Warping Whale looks pretty nice against him.
The most romantic card in Magic right there, ladies and gentlemen.
That is a romantic card. I like that.
Avacyn hitting play. It's going to get grasped here by Yang. Yeah, that's that was a pretty sick beat.
Yeah, and with the Selfless Spirit, he has enough creatures to crew that boat, and Fanchen Yang dies in a boating accident.
Jonathan Job taking that down 2-0. Mono White Eldrazi will advance to day 2 at 9-0. Who saw that coming?
I think some genius was talking about that earlier.
Yeah. Who could it be? Yeah, really cool deck. Really cool deck as well for Fanchen Yang. We'll stay at 8-1. Great record going into day 2 with Reanimator there.
And these were two of the more exciting decks we saw today. So it's pretty exciting to have gotten to watch them face off at 8-0 here.
Absolutely. I love both of these decks.
I don't know if I could have drawn it up better myself.
I just really want to, like, all I want to do now is go home and just play with this Reanimation deck. It just looks so fun.
The Reanimation deck does look really fun.
That's what I love to play Reanimation in Cube. So.
Oh, I mean, if this is up your alley, then this might be
Which is a totally
Your
different
weapon of choice for 10.
style of deck that I play like in Standard, though. So I don't know. You know, I'm still evolving as a baby Standard player.
I think you should play what speaks to you. And by what speaks to you, I mean with what you're winning the most with. Like those are synonymous things.
Even if I feel dead inside when I play it?
Oh, well, I would hope you wouldn't feel dead inside. You can feel dead inside while you're winning?
No, you're right.
No. You can't.
Good point. All right, let's
That's when you
take
feel alive.
a look in here. Scott Alter versus Paul Hagen. Both players also battling for 9-0.
Another?
Is this another Reanimator here?
It is. And what's insane is there could not have been that much Reanimator in the room today. And we have 2 Reanimator decks at 8-0.
That's so cool.
Miss Maria Pants,
Yes, JVL TMS.
you're onto something with this blue-black Reanimator thing.
Champion of Wits in play here for Scott. We've got a return, making a 2/2 zombie.
Yeah, never to return some nice haphazard hate there to deal with Ishkana so it doesn't get reanimated by Scott.
Noxious Gear Hulk will take care of the zombie token, gaining Scott some life and adding a significant threat to the board.
So it looks like this might be a very similar deck list to the other blue-black Reanimator deck we were just looking at.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of overlap here. Henny's Expertise. It's another really nice one. I mean, getting to play that card alongside things like Liliana the Last Hope, it just seems so good right now.
Oh, yes, it does. Another Noxious Gear Hulk. Eat your zombie. Gain some life.
Wow. Even as the Fatal Push, gets to just start being as aggressive as he wants to be.
Has it all. Just a little Lone Dread Wanderer in play currently for Paul. Liliana's Mastery is going to be there to give some bonuses. So Mono Black Zombies, a deck we were expecting to see quite a lot of this weekend. I think we've seen an okay amount, but certainly not.
We just had a Dark Salvation, a pretty nice one. And when you draw that card in the late game and your opponent has a nice juicy target, nothing really feels better for these zombie decks.
Strategic planning here for Scott. It's going to net him a Kalitas.
And
Looks to be just a Crypt Breaker left in hand for Paul.
Okay. Yeah, if he had had a removal spell for the Kalitas, then he'd be in great shape here. But with just a Crypt Breaker, he's going to have to start fishing for something. I'm a big fan of Champion of Wits. I hope that that card continues to do great things. That's
I think
the type
it
of card
will.
I want to play with.
Yeah.
I also, you ever listen to morning radio shows where they have people do like those insult contests where they try to like make the other person laugh by insulting each other?
No.
I feel like Champion of Wits would be the best at that.
Assuredly very witty, no doubt.
Unified modern players, your round 2 pairings have been posted.
If near Deadlands, activation will put 2/1/1 counters on that Kalitas.
Yeah, I like that Paul chose to attack first, kind of attempting to bait Scott into blocking there.
Grasp takes down the Crypt Breaker. Kind of trying to put a damper on Paul being able to draw his way out of any tricky situation.
And the thing is there, Paul, it's hard for him to justify drawing the card there because then he lets Scott get in for a whole lot of damage, and he was only at 10. So he's just going to take that. And
Another copy of If Near Deadlands is the only action in Paul's hand. Going to use it right now to try and kill Kalitas, but Kalitas will sacrifice, saving itself. Oath of Jaith. Finds a strategic planning in a land. And another strategic planning, I believe. Oh, no, it was Champion of Wits.
Yeah, but Champion of Wits is pretty good when it goes
Fine
to
in
the
the
graveyard
graveyard.
here, yeah. Wow.
Grasp taking down that Dread Wanderer, and the hits keep coming for Scott.
And you'll notice last turn, Paul chose not to block the Champion of Wits. He didn't want it in the graveyard. It was just too dangerous there. But now
Now there's
Scott already
two.
has one. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's he just going to tap all his mana and make 4/4s forever? That's not going to happen.
Dark Salvation finally taking care of that Trader of Get. More zombies joining the party here for Paul. I think that Liliana's Mastery is helping him amass quite an army.
I mean, just the enchantment part of it is already worth 6 points of power on this table.
And sure enough, Paul, despite being at 8, is going to crack in with 3 of those zombies. One goes down to the Noxious Gear Hulk.
Scott now down to 10.
Both players kind of would be playing off the top of their deck if it weren't for that Champion of Wits for Scott. Still another one in the graveyard as well.
So he gets to choose what card he wants out of all these that he has. 6 points of power here for Paul. He's going to need something good here.
Is that a Transgress?
It is. And he was able to take Yahenni's
Wow.
expertise out of Scott's hand. So
That would have been good to have.
that would have been brutal, especially alongside that Oath of Jace. The first time we watched this deck play out, we saw Yahenni's expertise into Oath of Jace, and then from
Well,
there on out.
just have another one. Brutal.
That is brutal.
Goodbye, zombies. I'd say rest in peace, but I don't think that's how it works.
And that's it.
That's the handshake. Scott Alter able to take down that match 2-1 versus Paul Hagen, finishing the day out at a pretty good record, 9-0.
9-0 for Blue-Black Reanimator.
That is excellent.
Sweet. It's a Sultai deck. There's Ishkana.
Yeah, there's Ishkana in there, but I mean, overall, one of my favorite decks that I've seen so far today. And that's the end of round 9 here from Grand Prix Minneapolis.